Welcome to the Mystery Archive. Here you'll find the home of forgotten stories, unexplained events, and honestly, some of the strangest anomalies history has ever left behind. Imagine, for a moment, a warrior so completely consumed by battle, they feel no pain, no fear, only an unstoppable drive. Was this berserker rage supernatural or, well, could it be something far more scientifically profound? We're diving into modern neuroscience to uncover the shocking brain chemistry that, believe it or not, could turn an ordinary human into an unyielding force of nature. So, get ready to have your perceptions of ancient combat absolutely shattered. When UFC fighter Georges St-Pierre described his championship performances, he spoke of entering a state where time just seemed to slow down, pain vanished, and his body moved with a precision that was, frankly, beyond conscious thought. Sports psychologists call this phenomenon flow state, a condition of peak performance where the athlete, in a way, transcends normal limitations. This modern combat experience actually offers a window into something far older and way more primal. The berserker rage that once terrorized medieval battlefields. The question isn't whether these states are related, but whether ancient warriors accessed something even more extreme through methods we're only now, really, beginning to understand scientifically. Norse sagas describe berserkers as warriors who fought in a trance-like fury, supposedly immune to steel and fire, and capable of superhuman feats. The Ynglinga saga recounts how these fighters went without armor and were mad as dogs or wolves, bit their shields and were as strong as bears or bulls. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as mythology or, just attributed to drug use. However, contemporary neuroscience reveals that the human brain actually possesses innate mechanisms capable of producing exactly the states described in those historical texts, without any need for supernatural intervention or even chemical enhancement. The berserker's power resided not in magic or herbs, but in the extraordinary neurological potential that exists within every human nervous system. Ancient fury, modern science. Primary historical sources provide, honestly, some remarkably consistent descriptions of berserker behavior. The 13th century Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson documented warriors who became impervious to pain, demonstrated extraordinary strength, and afterward experienced profound exhaustion, and sometimes even amnesia regarding their actions. Byzantine accounts of Varangian Guard berserkers note their complete disregard for personal safety and an almost unbelievable ability to continue fighting with wounds that would incapacitate normal soldiers. These weren't isolated incidents, but documented patterns observed across centuries and cultures, from Celtic battle frenzy to the Amok warriors of Southeast Asia. The neurochemical foundation of these states begins with the body's stress response system. When the hypothalamus detects extreme threat, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system to flood the bloodstream with catecholamines, primarily adrenaline and noradrenaline. This cascade produces the classic fight-or-flight response. Media group, visualization of fight-or-flight response chart, close-up of heart rate monitor, and scientific data stock distribute equally elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, redirected blood flow to major muscle groups, and mobilization of glucose reserves. However, in extreme circumstances or with specific training, this response can escalate far beyond typical stress reactions. Research conducted at Yale University in 2019 demonstrated that individuals experiencing acute stress showed up to 300% increases in circulating adrenaline, with corresponding dramatic shifts in pain perception and decision-making capacity. Dopamine plays an equally critical role in combat trance states. This neurotransmitter drives motivation, reward-seeking behavior, and motor control. During intense physical confrontation, dopamine surges create a powerful reinforcement loop where the act of fighting itself becomes, intrinsically rewarding. Studies of modern Special Forces soldiers conducted at the Naval Health Research Center found that combat-experienced personnel showed altered dopamine receptor sensitivity, suggesting their brains had adapted to find threat situations neurochemically rewarding rather than aversive. This adaptation could explain how berserkers not only endured combat, but actively sought it, as historical accounts consistently report. The prefrontal cortex serves as the brain's executive control center, responsible for rational decision-making, impulse control, and social judgment. Neuroimaging studies reveal that during extreme stress or intense physical exertion, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex dramatically decreases, a phenomenon neuroscientists term transient hypofrontality. Research published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience in 2021 demonstrated that athletes in flow states showed significantly reduced prefrontal activity, while simultaneously exhibiting enhanced performance in automated motor tasks. For berserkers, this prefrontal deactivation would have catastrophic implications for opponents. Without the moderating influence of executive function, the warrior's actions become driven entirely by the limbic system's survival imperatives. They don't pause to assess risk, reconsider strategy, or experience moral qualms about violence. The brain operates in pure reactive mode, responding to threats with maximum aggression and zero hesitation. This state mirrors what neuroscientists observe in certain pathological conditions, but berserkers likely accessed it through deliberate training and ritualistic preparation rather than brain injury or disorder. The amygdala, typically the brain's fear center, undergoes paradoxical changes during extreme combat states. While normally hyperactive during threat, research shows that in trained individuals experiencing acute stress, the amygdala's output to conscious awareness can be suppressed even as it continues coordinating physiological responses. A landmark 2018 study at the Max Planck Institute used functional MRI to examine experienced martial artists during simulated combat scenarios. Results showed their amygdalae remained active at the neurological level, but demonstrated reduced connectivity to regions processing conscious emotional experience. The subjects registered threats and responded appropriately, but reported minimal subjective fear. Exactly the dissociation between physiological arousal and psychological terror that historical berserker accounts describe. Endogenous opioids represent the body's natural pain management system. During extreme physical stress, the brain releases beta-endorphins, dynorphins, and enkephalins, molecules that bind to the same neural receptors as morphine and heroin. Research on marathon runners has documented endorphin levels increasing up to 5 times baseline, producing the famous runner's high and substantial pain suppression. Combat situations trigger even more dramatic opioid release. Studies of wounded soldiers have found that many report feeling no pain from severe injuries sustained during active fighting, with pain only emerging hours later once the engagement ended. This endogenous analgesia system could fully account for historical reports of berserkers fighting on, despite arrows, sword cuts, or spear wounds that would instantly incapacitate someone in a normal neurological state. The ritualistic preparation berserkers underwent before battle wasn't theatrical superstition, but sophisticated neuroscience applied intuitively. Historical accounts describe warriors engaging in rhythmic chanting, repetitive movements, and prolonged dancing before combat. Modern research reveals these activities as highly effective techniques for inducing altered states of consciousness. Rhythmic auditory stimulation, particularly drumming at 4 to 7 Hz, entrains theta brainwave patterns associated with trance states. The aftermath of berserker states reveals their biological cost. Historical accounts consistently describe warriors experiencing profound exhaustion, confusion, and sometimes complete amnesia following battle. This pattern mirrors what neuroscience predicts from extreme neurochemical and metabolic demand. The berserker's brain reveals the extraordinary adaptability of human neurology and the thin boundary between primal survival mechanisms and deliberately cultivated extreme states. These ancient warriors weren't supernatural beings, but humans who discovered, through trial and cultural transmission, how to access latent capabilities that modern neuroscience is only now properly mapping. Their legacy reminds us that the brain contains possibilities far beyond everyday experience, waiting to emerge when circumstances demand or training permits. The question facing us isn't whether such states exist, neuroscience confirms they absolutely do, but rather how we choose to understand and potentially apply this knowledge of human neurological extremes. If this exploration of ancient warrior neuroscience has expanded your understanding of human potential, subscribe to The Mystery Archive. We're dedicated to investigating the intersection of historical mysteries and cutting-edge science, revealing how modern research illuminates phenomena our ancestors experienced but couldn't fully explain. Hit that notification bell to catch every deep dive into the forgotten corners of history and human capability. Share this with anyone fascinated by the remarkable adaptations of the human brain. Together, we're uncovering the biological truth behind legends that shape civilizations. The mysteries of the past become clearer when we shine the light of modern science on them.